You open your fridge right now, and there's probably food in there from 3 weeks ago that's still fine. You don't think about it. You just close the door. Your ancestors in ancient Egypt didn't have that door. What they had was something stranger, more ingenious, and in at least one case, so effective that archaeologists cracked open a jar in 1922 and found something inside that was still edible after 3,000 years. That something was honey. When Howard Carter unsealed Tutankhamun's tomb, he found several sealed alabaster vessels among the grave goods. Some contained honey, not fossilized honey, not residue, honey, tasted by at least one member of the excavation team who apparently had no fear of consequences and reported to still be sweet. 3 millennia in the dark, and the bees had done their job so well that time barely touched it. But honey was the luxury item. Here's what most Egyptians were actually eating, and how they kept it from killing them. Salt. Specifically, a mineral called natron, sodium carbonate mixed with sodium bicarbonate, which the Egyptians pulled from dry lake beds in the Wadi el Natron region. You already know natron from one context. It's what embalmers packed around bodies to mummify them. The same substance that preserved the dead was preserving the food of the living. Salted fish, called nedit in Egyptian records, was so common, so central to the diet, that it became a unit of economic exchange. Workers didn't just eat it, they were paid in it. When you find administrative papyri from construction sites dating to the Middle Kingdom around 2000 BCE, you find fish rations listed alongside bread and beer as the baseline of human sustenance. Now here's where it gets specific in a way that should genuinely unsettle your assumptions. In the 1980s and 90s, archaeologist Mark Lehner led excavations at a workers' settlement south of the Giza Plateau, the actual village of the people who built the Great Pyramid. What he found wasn't squalor. It was infrastructure, industrial bakeries, industrial breweries, butchery facilities that processed cattle on a scale suggesting thousands of workers were fed organized, calibrated meals. The ration records that survived, cross-referenced with finds like the Wadi al-Jaf papyri, the oldest papyri ever discovered, dating to around 2560 BCE, show that pyramid workers received roughly 10 loaves of bread and between 1 and 2 jugs of beer per day. That beer wasn't recreational, it was nutritional. Fermented grain in a climate where water could kill you. The fermentation process was the preservation process, and the Egyptians knew exactly what they were doing, even if they didn't have the vocabulary for bacteria. The Ebers Papyrus, a medical document from approximately 1550 BCE, now held in Leipzig, lists honey as a treatment for infected wounds and as a preservative agent in compound medicines. The Egyptians had observed empirically that honey resisted spoilage, that it stopped corruption. They were right. Honey's low moisture content and natural hydrogen peroxide production make it genuinely chemically hostile to microbial life. They didn't know the mechanism. They knew the result. The same empirical logic governed their wine storage. Egyptian amphorae, clay wine jars, have been found stamped with what are essentially vintage labels: the year, the vineyard name, the estate overseer, and a quality grade. A jar from the tomb of Amenhotep III around 1370 BCE reads, Year 31, wine of the estate of Aten, very good quality, wine critic language, 3,500 years ago. They were tracking not just preservation, but provenance, because they understood that the conditions of production determined how long something would last. The ripple effect of all this is that food preservation was never just about food, it was about power. Grain, stored well, was political leverage. Rameses III's treasury records, the Wilbur Papyrus, show grain being distributed from centralized state granaries to temples, to workers, to the military. Grain as currency, grain as loyalty, grain as the mechanism by which a pharaoh held the loyalty of a population through drought and flood alike. The granary wasn't a barn, it was a bank. Control the grain, control the people. The Nile flooded. The grain was stored. The surplus was the state. When the preservation systems failed, when drought ran too long and the granaries ran empty, you got what historians document at the end of the Old Kingdom, around 2200 BCE, local governors seizing food stores, central authority collapsing, texts describing parents giving their children away because they couldn't feed them. Preservation wasn't a domestic chore. It was the load-bearing wall of civilization. What we lost when refrigeration arrived is harder to name. We lost the knowledge that food is temporary, that it requires active negotiation to keep it from returning to the chaos it came from. Every Egyptian household that packed fish in natron or sealed oil in ceramic and coated it with beeswax understood something about impermanence that your refrigerator quietly, efficiently hides from you every single day. The question worth sitting with is this: when a technology removes the need to think about something, what else does it remove?